Welcome, everyone, to episode 90 of the RDH Sports Podcast. I'm your host, Chad. Joined alongside me is my brother, Tanner. How's it hanging, dude?
It's going well. It is going well. We're in kind of the mecca of sports right now. I feel like I say that a lot, but two finals going on at the same time. I'm really excited. And obviously, the people are here, and the people want to hear us talk about sports.
My thing is, I'm right there with you. But the thing about sports is, I'm wondering what kind of kit you got going on over there because it looks a little MLG. Am I saying a little MLG action? I am. I think I got it right.
Yeah, it is an esports jersey. If you're watching on YouTube or if you're listening on Spotify, do your best to imagine. But it's a space station gaming esports jersey, and I'm a fan, and I've been a fan for a while. And my biggest we kind of talked about it previously on like a last podcast, not the last one, but way back when. Um, I love watching some Rocket League esports, dude. That's like one of my favorite games. And they just won a regional, like their first regional in like 4 or 5 years, ever since I've been watching as a fan. So it was good. It was a really good regional, and the boys played really well. And I'm really liking their team. And they're headed to Raleigh for the major, the second major of the season, and they've qualified for the World Championship, and they're headed all over the world. So it's going to be a hell of an event. I know a bunch of people love the esport. If go check out some RLCS is what it's called, Rocket League Championship Series. It's a blast, and everyone I've ever introduced to it absolutely loves it. It's just one of the most I think instinctual esports, because Rocket League's just there's you don't patch the game. You don't put in new guns. You don't balance things like that. That's never, the game's the exact same as it's been since launch. So that's kind of why I love it. It's just the players create the meta of the game, and so the best players in the world are constantly improving on themselves rather than just kind of complaining about game mechanics or waiting for something to change in the game. So that's why I really like it. It's very unique esport in that way. So that's why I'm a big fan, and had to shout out the boys. I have a sports podcast, and I get to talk about things that are sports. So that's kind of my reasoning, and it just looks sick. You know what I mean? Let's get a back view. I'm not like sponsored. We're not sponsored or anything, but like you can kind of see it a little bit. Kind of
Cool
sick.
kit. Cool kit.
Kind of sick. The spaceman on it. The astronaut. That's their whole thing. Also, if you're a
A
big
little
Halo,
mix between, I don't know, I was saying like a little mix between like F1 and like a little soccer jersey. But yeah, no,
yeah,
I can't say I've ever been to an esports event, but hey, kids are getting scholarships for it now.
yep,
And when I was a kid, it was like PS1 days. You know what I mean?
yeah.
So
I mean,
whatever
imagine
works.
we've gone very far. We've come very, very far. I mean, you'll pay kids hundreds of thousands of dollars. I mean, go look at like League or CS:GO or any of those big esports. Like those guys have packed stadiums for just like you know weekly matches. It's really insane. Rocket League is nowhere near the top, but I love it. So I really got to shout out the boys.
There you go. Got to shout the boys. Another boys we got to shout out. Another boys
The
we got to
segue.
shout out here. And hey, here's the thing: is we had to wait. Look, I'm not coming in with the PSG jersey and everything mainly because it's dirty. And here's my thing: I can't like. I feel like I can't rock like my Mbappe or like my Messi jersey, So I'm rocking like the one that they, the home kit that they had a couple years ago. Buddy of mine got it for me when he was in Paris a couple years ago. So shout out to Noah on that one. But dude, PSG takes it home for their first ever Champions League win. I got to say, look, I'm a fan of some teams, right? If you don't know me, if you're new to the pod, my teams are in. If you don't believe me, I don't really care, right? I could care less. But my teams are the Cowboys. That's like numero uno, right? We got PSG for soccer. Yep. We got San Jose Sharks for hockey, right? Hey, easy. They used to be all right. For basketball, we had the Lakers. We get Luca, and then nothing happens,
Fair,
right? Like
fair.
those are my squads, right? For baseball, it's the Angels, right? Those are my squads. Angels right there, right? I got everything up and everywhere. But here's my thing: PSG is my squad in soccer, right? And for the first time in like however many years, it wasn't a team from what was it like England or Spain or Germany or whatever. But hey, I usually when I'm watching PSG play, as a fan watching them when as soon as Mbappe came over is when I started watching them real heavy because I followed Mbappe from Monaco, and I'm watching this kid. I'm like, this kid's absolutely insane. You and I were watching those. What was that? The not World Championships. You got me thinking gaming.
The Euros?
World Cup. Goodness, I'm like trying to think of what it's called. I'm like, it's not World Championships. It's the World Cup. And we're watching Mbappe win the World Cup like before he turns 21. You know what I mean? And then he's at PSG, and then he leaves, and then the next season, the season after he left, PSG was one of the youngest teams in the entire tournament. Comes in and just stomps Inter, dude. Like, I've never seen a more dominant soccer game just by watching PSG, because I watched, a handful of games throughout the season and every single Champions League game that they're in, group stage and all. But I was just sitting there, I'm like, someone's got to give, right? Like, someone's got to give. No, nothing gave. And everybody on that team is absolutely, and seeing Marquinhos get the dub, and like when they're throwing up Kimpembe, like, come on, man. Like, those are guys that were there back when we couldn't get anything, but there's all these different transfer rumors now, and this is when it gets fun in the soccer world because you see who comes in. But look, man, I've seen that. I can't say I really watched the Angels win a championship because it was like early 2000s. I don't remember it. Sharks, they got stomped by the Penguins in the finals. I watched the Lakers win some championships with the Kobe and Shaq era, and then when they won it again with LeBron and COVID. But PSG, this is the first time I've seen like another team. You know what I mean? It's the first time, full soccer a little bit more than basketball, right? If you listen to the pod, you know that. Dude, I'm stoked, man. What did you see in that game? Like, I know you watched it. I was calling you freaking out, and just can't say enough good things. My pre-orders are on the way. When the championship shirt comes, we'll put it on. Don't worry.
Well, yeah, it's one of those things where it's like, they've been so close so many times, and they finally get, the monkey off their back that is winning that, the Champions League. It's the highest league. It's one of the best trophies in all of sports, really, and
for sure,
it's one of the best honors in, European soccer, football, whatever you want to call it, right? So the fact that, Mbappe leaves and then they, kind of do the impossible, something that people were like, yeah, well, they're not going to do it with Mbappe. There's no way they're going to do it without him, right? So they kind of
mention Neymar and Messi, dude.
Yeah, and that whole era where it was like they were absolutely stacked and they still couldn't get it done, with the best names you've ever heard of, even ever, so it's impressive stuff. And when we talked about it on this podcast, right, I was talking like, I just don't know, it's like there's a lot of good clubs, but, no offense, but you go up against an Inter squad that defensively has struggles, and they've had struggles throughout this tournament. You put 2 and 2 together with a very offensively powered PSG, and you kind of get the result that we saw, right? It's just a bug squishing against a windshield with Inter, man, because it was like 5-0, and it was well underway early on in that game too. I mean, I turned it off. I think after the 4th goal, and I was like, okay, I think we know who's winning this one. Congrats, on the first ever Champions League. I mean, that's something that. You'll be 90 years old and being like, I was able to see PSG win a championship, and maybe they don't ever win again, but who cares? You get to see the only one, at least so far, first of many, hopefully. I mean, they got that young kid, Doué. I love talking his praises. He's fantastic. The new regime is coming on over there in European football, and god dang, we got ourselves a new champion in the Champions League. First ever. I love it, man. It's not, Real or I get to watch like another Premier League team take it, and it's like, oh my, I was rooting for them the whole way, and I'm just happy, they took it home.
It feels good, It feels good to be a fan of a team that got a championship. It feels real nice. Real nice.
I'm a United fan, so we've had our wins. I got to watch them growing up, and it was awesome. I got to watch Ronaldo, which was pretty sick. You get to watch Messi, Mbappe, now Doué, and these guys. It's pretty good. I mean, I'd say we're pretty at this point. We're doing pretty well.
Makes me feel pretty good. I tried to get the hat, couldn't get it shipped to America. I mean, that's a little bit of a bummer.
That's
but hey,
crazy.
Here's the thing. I know it's a little crazy. It'll become available eventually. But hey, I got the book, I got the shirt on the way. No big deal. Book will be right up there. It'll be right up there in the new setup and everything. But all right, that's I could go on for an hour and a half about the game, and I'm not gonna do it because
American sports. Come on, give the people what they want.
It was just an absolute shit kicking 5-0, biggest ever win in the Champions League. Shout out PSG.
Right.
That's the squad. And we're going to keep rolling here. And Tanner clearly is ready to move on. So go ahead and take it away there, Tanner.
As you saw, on the YouTube's George Pickens trade, it's old news. We get it, but we haven't actually talked about it. We've kind of mentioned it ever so slightly, but we really haven't gone into it in big detail. So I will give you the floor because I don't really have another screen to look at the details of the trade because they're being taken up by this recording. Funny enough, I have two screens and I kind of record on both of them, so I can't. That's why I use my phone all the time, right? But it's kind of a crazy trade, a trade that, as Dallas fans, we kind of look at and we're like, I mean, that's really good, and kind of in the midst of a couple off seasons where Jerry is not doing a whole lot, it's kind of this win now, this, he's going all in, all these big kind of promises from Jerry Jones, and we finally see a transaction or some type of trade or draft pick, something that screams win now, right? Just an aggressive move to go out and get, a number 2 to CD Lamb that will be a 1B at this point, right? With him as a 1A and 1B. I mean, it just completely opens up the offense. It just reminds me of the Amari Cooper, Michael Gallup, CD Lamb days with, I guess minus Amari, but he kind of takes that Michael Gallup role over on the other side to CD, and you can run so many different things. It's a great trade. I mean, they traded pretty much nothing to get him, and you kind of look at how the transactions across the leagues have been, and a lot of good deals going here and there, and I think Dallas finally got their piece of a really, really good deal and a really good transaction, and I think they just took advantage of a poor situation over there in Pittsburgh with George Pickens and the DK Metcalf trade and his locker room issues and all the off the field stuff, or just on the field aggressiveness, issues, kind of that kind of stuff, right? And they kind of took advantage of that. They didn't love him in their locker room. And so far, all we've seen from George Pickens in Dallas is friendship, camaraderie, and just a willingness to work and try and really get this offense rolling and making it, something to be afraid of in the NFL. So everyone's saying it's a good trade. I completely agree. And what are your thoughts on this, man? How do you think it's going to transform this Dallas offense?
Yeah, I mean, I think that, Dallas sends a third round in 2026 and 27 fifth. The Steelers send a 27 sixth round pick, and obviously Dallas gets George Pickens. I mean, my thing is I like George Pickens a lot. I thought he was a number 1 wide receiver on some teams, not a lot of teams. I can't say most teams that have like a true number 1 wide receiver, but for me, he's a number 1 wide receiver on a lot of teams. Mm-hmm. But whenever you put a guy like that with CeeDee Lamb, because you have to double cover CeeDee Lamb, you can't not, which means George Pickens cannot be double covered. Or if you double cover George Pickens, which technically you could, then your slot wide receiver is going to be available, whether that be Turpin, who knows what role he's going to play in the offense this year, or whether that be someone else that they drafted in the 6th round this year specifically, or last year in the last couple of years, right? So that's my big thing with Dallas. What does it do for their team immediately? I mean, I think it's pretty obvious. I think it jumps their wide receiver core immediately into the top 10. But the biggest question I have is not even, I mean, yes, 100% you're right. This is the first time as fans that we can say Dallas did a trade that really, really, yeah, it's working well, unless he just shits the bed, which I don't think is going to happen. Yeah. But he's a really good player in my opinion.
I was saying that Amari trade was a 1st round pick, and this is a 5th and like a swap for late round picks, or a 3rd and like a swap for later round picks. So I mean, this is one of the best deals we've seen in recent memory from the Cowboys.
For me, 100%, it's the best one we've seen. I mean, we've just gotten burned. I remember the Brandon Carr where we got burned. I remember the Morris Claiborne where Dallas jumped up in the draft to do it and got burned. Yep. I remember, we don't even need to talk about Taco Charlton. Like there's a lot of misses that teams have had, and Dallas specifically has had, but you can argue right now that this is the best wide receiver core that they've ever had in terms of our era, because I'm not going to go back against like the Michael Irvin era and everything like that. Yeah. But you can argue that it is, right? Because you always have had that number 1 wide receiver. And yeah, you can say that Michael Gallup was number 2 wide receiver, but like there could be 3 games in a row, dude, where he doesn't get above 50 yards.
Yeah,
That's not George Pickens.
I agree.
That is not George Pickens. George Pickens, if he's not getting 50 yards, he's either fighting someone on the sideline or fighting someone in the game. Like, that's what I can't wait for. Like, that guy, God, that guy, him and DK, man, they make games fun. Just like Andre Johnson did back in the day. Like, oh, they make games fun to watch. But to me, it immediately jumps Dallas up into the top 10 in terms of wide receiver rankings and duos, which we'll come out with, closer to the season. But the running game for Dallas is the big thing for me, because if you're not going to stack anybody in the box anyway, you're going to drop everybody into coverage. Mm-hmm. So if you're going to play a team most likely on zone, Dak's going to have to find holes in the zone, and he's shown at times that he can do that. And maybe it's been a little bit harder because everyone knows he's got to go to CeeDee Lamb at some point. How many targets are going to go away from Kevontae Turpin, are going to go away from Jalen Ferguson? Like, how many targets are going to go away from those guys to go to George Pickens? Because for me, you're giving CeeDee Lamb 15 targets a game, and you're probably giving George Pickens 10. So, like, right there, that's 25 passes.
Yeah.
And that's between two guys. Now, sometimes Dak likes to force the ball, and other times he doesn't like to force the ball. So there's a lot of questions on what's going to happen. Like, there's so many questions I have coming out of the Cowboys camp, but it's very simple. Have they done enough to beat Philadelphia? In my opinion, no. And have they done enough to beat Washington? This made it a lot closer. Mm-hmm. We'll have to see what happens. But in my opinion, if you can split against the Eagles in Washington this year, you're looking pretty good, because this NFC East is starting to be a really good team, or starting to be a really good division. Not to mention, if there's a big if there, if the Giants go above 500, then that makes it all the worse. And not to mention all the other out-of-conference games you play. So there's my rant on the Cowboys. You're right. We hadn't gotten into it, and we're going to get into it a whole lot more in this offseason, because after this episode, we're going to come back, and there's going to be no NHL playoffs. There's going to be no NBA playoffs, and it's just going to be the NFL and maybe even a little bit of golf. We're going to talk some UFC. Any last thoughts, Tanner, on this Dallas Cowboys George Pickens acquisition, or is it time to move on to another sport?
Well, I think it's kind of interesting, especially given how Dallas acted in this past year's in the draft, right? You look at, their position that they went out and got first and foremost, and that's an offensive lineman, right? And we talked about it. They want to run the ball. That's what they want to get back to it, right? They don't want Dak to be throwing the ball 40, 45, maybe even 50 times a game. It's not, it's not what they want out of this offense. Sure, it might, maybe it works, but like, you want to have that consistency and that ability to do both, right? And that's kind of what they want to do. I think so. And it's interesting because you look at the Pickens trade after the draft, and it's like, oh, okay, this is kind of like, now they're kind of building a team that can do a lot of things, right? Because, I mean, George Pickens, he's a versatile receiver. He can, he can run a short route. He can run a long route. We know what he can do on those deep balls. I mean, we saw him from Russell Wilson, right? I mean, he's just fantastic in those contested catches. So, and he can underneath. I mean, he's just a strong, really capable receiver that can get open on those short routes too. I mean, think of like DK. I mean, he gets so many great yards on those short routes in Seattle, and I hope they kind of do a similar type fit over there in Dallas. And obviously, like you said, everyone's going to be looking at CeeDee Lamb. Oh, guess what? George Pickens is here. I mean, he's going to take a lot of pressure off of like guys like you said. I think Ferguson and Turpin, and I mean, I remember last year watching the Cowboys, and you look at guys like Jalen Tolbert and how much separation they didn't get in a lot of those routes and a lot of those single coverage type situations with just a DB right on his butt, just right on him, just blanketed. And it feels like Tolbert sometimes Turpin just don't really get enough space to be able to make an impact. And I just don't think that's going to be an issue with George Pickens, especially against someone's number 2 cornerback, right? Because we know number 1's going on CeeDee. So in Turpin over there, he's kind of has a similar role, but there's just going to be a lot less attention, I think, drawn over to Turpin's side, right? Just if he's in the slot, wherever they want to put him, right? And of course, Ferguson, he's now the third option, I think, on this offense. And for a tight end as talented as him, I think that's a really good spot for him to be in. I think he's going to get a lot of open looks and a lot of, kind of safety blanket type throws from Dak. So I'm looking towards, like you said, that that offense that was just absolutely killer with Amari and Michael and CD, and just looking at it from that kind of lens. And I think Dallas can. I mean, I think Dak easily has the talent to make this offense work and have a productive year. I mean, hopefully no injuries. Knock on wood, but everything is looking up for the Cowboys, at least as of right now. So let's get on to the next sport.
And take us away with that next sport, dude, because it's all you. This is your domain here. I had even a segment for it back in the day, Tanner's Corner 3. What do we got in this NBA times? Take us through it.
The corner three has just become NBA talk because it is, the forefront of a lot of sports right now. And with the NBA Finals, you got the Oklahoma City Thunder and the Indiana Pacers, who, if you go back and listen, I did predict them. I don't remember what I said. I want to say it was six. It was either 6 or 7, but regardless, the Indiana Pacers punched their ticket to the NBA Finals, and it looked pretty easy for them. We started in the East, kind of that matchup, and because I think that's the most exciting one, and at least the most kind of what's the word, like the one you were kind of not going to be able to guess, right? No one was like, oh, at the beginning of this series, everyone picked Knicks, and guess what? It's Indiana again, but this team is just really, really, really disciplined. And I think Carlisle over there, their head coach, is doing a really good job at just making these guys ready for the moment, making them ready for the type of situation that they're going to be in. I mean, he's a finals winning coach, right? It's been a little while, but he knows how to win a championship. And I think he's showing it with these guys. I think the biggest thing you ask out of an NBA team in the playoffs is for their depth players to come and play meaningful minutes. And I think that's exactly what Indiana has done throughout these playoffs. I mean, it seemingly doesn't matter who's on the court at any time for Indiana because their offense or defense or transition onto either doesn't take a step back at all. I mean, you got guys like TJ McConnell, who's coming in for Tyrese Halliburton, and he's playing fantastic minutes. He's driving to the lane. He's getting easy buckets. He's doing everything that Tyrese would do. Maybe not to the same level as we saw in that series, but he's a guy that can come in and absolutely gets Tyrese some rest minutes. Miles Turner, like he's been a fantastic piece of this series. Everyone's talking about Pascal Siakam. Everyone's talking about Tyrese Halliburton and these guys, but these other guys, Nemhard, Naismith, and Mathurin got some minutes, and he's gonna get more minutes moving forward too due to some injuries, but these guys, it's just next man up for them, and they're playing really, really, really good basketball, and I think they just beat the ever-living hell out of the New York Knicks in that series. They looked faster, they looked like they were setting the pace, no pun intended, but they're really good at it, and they're playing their brand of basketball throughout that series. They're not letting the Knicks control the tempo, maybe in one game, and that's one of the ones that the Knicks won. I think it was game 5, but the Pacers come right back out in game 6 and take care of business, man. They look like they've been doing this the whole playoffs. They know how to win in these closeout game situations, and they've been playing really good ball. I think specifically they're just on transition. They're probably one of the hardest teams to guard in the NBA, man. I mean, that transition defense for them is just really, really good. They're just getting on these guys and just playing well in transition and transitioning over to offense when they're coming off of defense. I think they're creating mismatches. They're running the pick and roll probably to perfection. I think it's looked really, really good. And you got guys like, you look at it in this past series, you got guys like, Cat guarding, lower little guys. And it's like, they're creating these mismatches on transition and really taking advantage of them through the playoffs. And I think that's kind of what is really propelling them into this NBA Finals, man. I think they've done it against pretty much everyone they've played. The Cavs, the Bucks, the Knicks. They've not really changed their brand of basketball, and they look really, really good. But what do you got on that series at least? How did you think? I mean, from a guy that's like, what's up with these Knicks? I thought they were good. You know what I mean? And the Pacers come into town, and they're like, hey, guess what? We're the new kids on the block. We're going to the finals. No one thought we would even make it out of the first round.
I mean, it's a surprise, that's for sure. I'm not going to act like I've followed it, every single game. I've watched a lot of the NBA playoffs, but I haven't watched a lot of them. I'm gonna be honest, I haven't watched a lot of Pacers games except for the games that Halliburton goes off. Oh wait, that's like every game, right? Like that is the Pacers team, and you mentioned it with some other key guys there as well. But I think this series, I know we're talking about this side of it, but I no shot. Like if you had a bet at the beginning of the year and you had Pacers and OKC, like goodness, you know what I mean, or either one of those for champions, like that's a heck of a bet. But this Pacers team, like you said, is very fast in transition. I think they have a couple guys that need to get buckets, and if they don't, this series is going to get out of hand quickly because I think that Shea and this Oklahoma City Thunder team is just another level. And it's funny, you had PSG, which is one of the youngest teams out there, to just win the Champions League, like we talked about a segment ago. And this Oklahoma City Thunder team is the youngest team in the NBA, and they are one of the youngest teams in the NBA, and they could win a championship, and they could do it in 4 or 5.
Yep.
You know what I mean? But the Pacers have been saying, not today to every single team that they've played. And yeah, everyone picked New York in that series, and a lot of people picked New York early. Mm-hmm. I said New York in 7. For me, it's a toss-up. And like I said, I don't have any skin in the game for that one. I'm a Lakers fan. We got bodied in the first round. But for me, this series is Shea and Halliburton. And this is going to be a fun series because it's going to be those guys absolutely going against each other, and I can't wait to see. And we're going to see why Shea's the MVP, in my opinion. I have OKC in this series, and I would like to say it's going to go 7, but I'm going to say 5. I'm going to say 5 games OKC in 5 games. And hey, like I said, I'm an idiot. I picked the Lakers to go to the championship.
I don't.
You know what I mean? I picked the Lakers.
I don't think it's a bad pick because I think out of all the opponents that the Indiana Pacers have played up to this point, this is easily their hardest test by far. It's not even close. And like you look at the teams like the Bucks, yeah, they have Giannis and Dame for a little bit of that series, right? But they really didn't give a flying, about Giannis when he's going off for 30, 40 a game. Same thing in the Cleveland series when they played the Cavs. I mean, it's just these guys that are not playing up to their standards, in my opinion. You have these super loaded teams, right? Like the Cavs, like the Knicks. So they went out and got Karl Anthony Towns and Jalen Brunson. I think he played really well throughout the series, but there were points when you kind of wanted a little bit more, where I think defensively, not defensively on Brunson, but defensively, the Indiana Pacers did a good job taking care of him on the perimeter, man. I think he was kind of not locked up at all because he had a lot of really good games in that series, but I think there were points at which Brunson's like, oh, boom, like, what the heck's going on with that? Like, I think it's the end of game 1 or 2, I'm not sure, but it's like that air ball by Cat and Brunson at the end of the game, and it's like, this is the NBA's, clutch player of the year. You really did not see that. If anything, the shoe was on the other foot with Indiana. Tyrese being absolutely clutch throughout the end of that series. I mean, it's just one of those things where you turn it off and it's like, hey, guess what? You got depth guys coming in and shooting 15 points in the last 2 minutes of the game, and Indiana comes in and steals game 1, and Tyrese throws up the choke, and oh my goodness, Reggie Miller pointed at him too, and I love it. It's just they have this. And this is just me, all these old, millennials and stuff out there. This is all Gen Z. They have aura, dude. They've got all of it. They've got the vibes. They've got swag, whatever you want to call it, whatever generation you're from. They just have something, this chip on their shoulder, kind of about them, where it's, no one's counting us in, and it's really awesome stuff. But I do think they'll run into a buzzsaw with the Oklahoma City Thunder, because they just have guys who can go off on any night. I mean, Jalen Williams, he's a guy that has shown in this playoffs that he can be the guy when Shea's not on, and he can drop 30 on any given night. Period. Same with, I don't think Chet has shown up to the same level as Jalen in these playoffs, but he's a guy that can take over a game, especially in the paint, if he just starts getting a little hot down there. So obviously Shea's going to do his thing. He's probably dropping 30, but to the Pacers, that's nothing. They've been able to take away scores like that all playoffs long.
About Chet, real quick to jump in, I was watching that last series, and like Doris Burke said it the best, like he's shooting with confidence. That one game they had a solid outing. Mm-hmm. Like if Chet shoots with confidence, that's a secret weapon. Not a secret weapon because everybody knows who he is and he's so damn big. But like that's a guy that if he gets hot this round, if Chet goes out there and gets a couple 30-point games, yeah. And Shea goes out there and gets a 30, 40-point. I mean, that's going to be really hard to beat. And that's exactly what you were mentioning with like. This is where the Pacers' depth has to come into play.
They have to play
because Oklahoma City has got some guys, man. But keep going.
I think OKC, and to your point, I think OKC will play well. Now, again, knock on wood, but we've seen these guys kind of step up throughout these playoffs for the Oklahoma City Thunder. Like we said, yes, it's Shea. He's doing his job. He's getting to the free throw line. He's doing MVP type things, right? But it's just these other guys that you really have. Like, let's talk about Alex Caruso. I mean, defensively, he's been a giant for this Oklahoma City team. Texas A&M, Giga Mags. I got Johnny up there. You can kind of barely see him a little bit. Anyway, there he is, a little bit. You got Caruso, and I think that he's just been fantastic for the Oklahoma City Thunder in these playoffs. He's just been a defensive guru. I mean, that's how he was playing when he won a championship with the Lakers. He's just a guy, again, that can just pin down these guards. And when you got guards like Tyrese, when you got guards, coming in there like TJ McConnell, like we were saying, you're going to need these guys to get some turnovers. You're going to need Caruso to, really get a hand in there. I mean, you can't screen him. Like the pick and roll is just going to be so tough for the Indiana Pacers when Caruso inevitably lines up on Tyrese Halliburton at some point in this series. It will happen. So it's just one of those things where I really need a lot from the Pacers' depth, and they've shown me that they can do it. But it's going to be one of those things where now it's like, okay, you've been doing it all playoffs, but can you do it in the biggest moment on the biggest stage against the best team in the NBA? And I think that is obviously the best record with Oklahoma. So they've got just so many good guys. And it just feels like you were saying with Chet too, with him shooting in confidence. I mean, if he gets going at all in the paint, I think he starts getting going outside as well. And I mean, if Chet's knocking down 3-pointers, just kind of seemingly at will, this series is going to be over in 5, like you said. So I just want to see some matching from the other side of the pendulum with the Indiana Pacers. I want to see, obviously, Pascal Siakam. He needs to play well in this series, and obviously Halliburton. But let me see some Miles Turner. Like, let me see some guys that you really don't have on a game by game basis. Dropping meaningful minutes, right? Just a lot of big time minutes from a lot of depth players is really the thing that I want to see, because that's what kept them in every single series they've been in so far. I think Carlisle's going to get the boys ready, but we'll see what happens. I mean, there's a little bit of championship experience on the Pacers with Siakam. He's won a championship in Toronto, and I'm looking again to him step up, but in OKC, it's one of those things like, okay, these guys haven't won a championship, but they look like they have the pedigree. It looks like the Nuggets that we saw a couple years back. Like, no, they haven't won a championship, but they look really good in a lot of really tough spots. So that's it's a rock and a hard place. But man, I got OKC. I'm gonna go 6, and just because that's what I'm feeling. I got to give the Pacers 2. I think they've been a good team, but Oklahoma likes to step on the gas and then step on the gas and then one more time step on the gas. They don't let up at all. I mean, they've put up what felt like 150 points in a couple of these games in these playoffs, and it's like when they start scoring, they don't stop. And the Pacers have been these comeback kids. The kids, we're down 20 going into the fourth, let's go and win the game. Doesn't matter when you're down by 40. It's one of those things. It's just going to be hard if you just continue to kind of step on the gas like OKC loves to do. So I don't expect them to let up at any point in the series at all. I think they're going to continue to attack the basket. They're going to continue to give Shea the basketball and just let him cook in the minutes that matter most in the fourth quarter. And that's been Indiana's quarter. But if you can dominate that quarter, just specifically in this series, I think OKC's got it in the bag. So that's my big rant on the NBA, but we've had a lot of playoffs. We've had a lot of stuff to talk about, and I hope everyone is, also doubting the Indiana Pacers just like I am once again. We'll see if they can do it. It would be a kind of a fairy tale ending to this whole season for the Indiana Pacers if they can get it done, especially since I don't know if anyone picked them to win the finals, even at the beginning of these playoffs, much less each coming round after the beginning round. So
unbelievable, man. Just the NBA rant of the century. All right, NHL time, and we'll get out of here, and then next time we talk again, guys, it's gonna be nothing going on.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Bring your snacks, bring your headphones, bring your cellular devices. Like this is school, because we're not going to be doing a whole lot except talking some just ball, just straight ball, not results, no tournaments, no games. Making me tear up.
Straight football. Straight football is gonna be coming up. All right, NHL time. We got the Panthers. We got the Oilers. We got a rematch from last year. We also have the Panthers, who are going back to the Stanley Cup for the third time,
Impressive.
and the Edmonton Oilers going back to the Stanley Cup for the second time. And you can argue that both teams got a little bit better, but Florida, I mean, when Brad Marchand's on your third line and playing the way he's doing right now, I mean, and Bobrovsky got hot. That's why Florida's kind of where they're at. You know what I mean? I mean, my biggest thing with this series, man, is that Toronto series with Florida. You literally had the Maple Leafs were up 2-0 in that series. And then that third game went to overtime. That's how close Florida was to go. Because, I mean, Florida's a great team, but going up 3-0, I mean, that's only been done like 4 or 5 times, I think, in the history of the sport. And one of them was against my Sharks and the Kings. Shout out, Kings. That one's done. That one still stings, man. Yeah. But Florida, you and I have been to a game this season. We got to watch this team actually against Brad Marchand and the Bruins. But my thing with this series, man, is pretty simple. You've got 2 really good players on the Oilers. And you could argue the best in the playoffs left with Leon Draisaitl and Connor McDavid. And Connor McDavid, in my opinion, is the best player in the world. And if he starts to win cups, he's gonna get into the conversation of one of the best ever. It's gonna be real hard to beat Waino for me. But dude, Connor, this series, in my opinion, lies on these guys. And like, Bobrovsky, the goaltender for the Florida Panthers, is gonna get at least one game. The minimum one game. Bobrovsky's gonna take one game. So there's one game with Florida. But here's the big thing with this series. There wasn't that last year, if you remember. Edmonton's at home this series. If this goes to Game 7,
do they have the home series advantage?
Yes. Okay. If this goes to 7, it's at Edmonton.
That's scary.
Which is big. Which is big. Because you saw Edmonton when they played Dallas. You saw just the outside of that rink. Just the outside. Like, Edmonton is a scary town to go in and play, not to mention in the Stanley Cup freaking playoffs, not to mention the Stanley Cup. You know what I mean? The round to win the Stanley Cup. But long-winded here. Florida, I give the edge to goaltending. Florida, I have to give the edge to defense. And offense, their depth, they get the edge. But the only edge they don't have is they don't have Leon Draisaitl and they don't have Connor McDavid. Yep. In my opinion, it's those guys. So we're going to see how big this is. And if the Edmonton Oilers win tonight, it's going to be real interesting. Because if you remember correctly, last year, they went down early, real quick. 0-3, if I'm not mistaken. Then they brought it back 3 games, and then they lost in Game 7. So we'll see. Or it was 6. I don't know. It was 6 or 7 last year. But what do you got on this series? Because, man, this is a good one. And obviously, I had Florida making it to the Cup, so I can't not pick them to win.
That's fair.
So I have to pick Florida to win, even though I may or may not want Connor McDavid to just lift up Lord Stanley right now and Leon Draisaitl, but I think probably by the end of his reign going to be the best German player to ever play in the NHL. If he lifts the Stanley Cup, yeah, it'll probably help the legacy a little bit. You know what I mean? So, what do you got on this series, man? Because these playoffs have been fun, and I'm going to say it. Dallas look not good. Edmonton made Dallas look real bad, and everybody but the Kings that have played the Oilers have gotten dominated. Yeah. So, what do you got in the series? Who do you got? I'm picking Florida. You have to freaking pick Edmonton. I
am going to pick Edmonton because I'm going to pick Edmonton. I'm going to pick them in 7 for the exact reason that you said. The fact that they do have that home ice advantage throughout the series is going to play I think a big factor. You know, obviously, like Florida, they like to get going, and we've been to their stadium, we've been to their arena, and it's a place that's hard to play, you know, and it's a place that gets loud, it gets rowdy, and they just kind of bully you. So the fact that it's not there the entire series is going to be really good. But Edmonton, they just have, I mean, we've talked about it. They've got this depth that has just seemingly come out of nowhere in these playoffs, right? They've just been guys that aren't Connor McDavid, aren't Leon Draisaitl, you know, that are just coming out of the woodwork and are like, hey, guess what? Boom, it's in your net, you know? So it's really impressive. And I don't think that was something that they had in the Stanley Cup playoffs this past season. And it seems like, to me, Connor McDavid is on kind of a revenge tour here. He seems like he's playing better than he did last year. He's playing faster than he did last year, and he's seemingly more in a no bullshit kind of mood than he was last year. He's just like, let's just get to the games. Like, what are we doing, guys? Let's just get to the I mean, you saw him in the locker room last year's Stanley Cup final where he's just throwing them a new one. He's like, "What are we? This is the effing Stanley Cup finals. Like, what are you doing?" Like he's here, and it seems like his team wasn't last year, but it seems like the team has started to play at the level that McDavid has come to expect from his teammates. So I think they're hitting at an all-time high right now. I think that they've gotten hot at the right time, like we like to say in sports, and I got to go Edmonton here. Like you said, they've just been thrashing people. I mean, we go and look at that Vegas series, and that should have been a sweep, right? We look at that Dallas series, and that was almost a sweep, And like, it's just, how do you not pick the team that is just kind of absolutely blitzing people right now? And I think Canada is going to finally take it home after like 25 years or something like that. The Cup's going finally back to Canada, and I think it's going to be an amazing series, though. It's going to be one of those things where my big question is the goalkeeping for Edmonton. How is Skinner going to play? We saw him kind of play lights out in that Dallas series. He was on another level, but where, like, in comparison to Bobrovsky, it's going to be, probably not at the level that Bob plays, but how close can he get to that level? How close can he stand on top of his head in these finals? Will the pressure get to him? I don't know, because Florida seems like they can score in bunches and seems like they can score a lot of goals very quickly. So, just go look at that Eastern Conference Finals. It's ridiculous. They just kind of let them do anything they want. But for the betterment of the Western Conference, we need Edmonton to win a Stanley Cup so they can stop making it there and stop beating my Stars. we need Edmonton to win a cup so Dallas can finally get past the Western Conference Finals. I mean, god damn, this is just rude at this point. Obviously not all by the hands of Edmonton, but they've kind of had a hold on this conference the last 2 years, and it's just one of those things. It's like, whoa, oh darn, oh darn, it's Connor McDavid. Oh darn, oh darn, he's the best player in the world. Oh, he's gonna do. Oh, we're done. It's one of those things where I think the greatness of this player can really show through in this series. I mean, he's been the best player in these playoffs up to this point. I think my boy Rantanen has a shout, but no one's even talking about him anymore. It's all
and not to mention, he's just like outscoring everybody, and he hasn't like had a McDavid standard playoffs that he's had. Like, he's technically due for a couple games.
I know, we haven't seen magic yet.
That's absolutely terrifying. But you have Florida, who is just going to follow him around and practically punch him in the back of the head and hit him in the back of the knees every single chance that they get.
I think he's ready.
And like, here's the thing: is that like Draisaitl was clearly hobbled last year. Like, I don't know if it was last year or the previous year, but Draisaitl had that high ankle sprain. Still went out and outscored everybody aside from McDavid with a high ankle sprain. I don't know if you've ever had a high ankle sprain. It hurts so freaking bad. I can't even imagine putting skates on and going to skates. There's no way. No chance. They asked me to play a roller hockey tournament back in the day. I had a high ankle sprain. I said, no way. I went and I was moral support. I was a good locker room guy. That's why they kept me on the team, But come on, like we can't be doing that. But okay, my thing with this series is, like you said, it's up to complete up in the air, pretty much in my opinion. And if you look on like all of the betting sites, it's like a legit pick. Like, whoever 50-50 chance. Like, both these guys that no one can really pick who's going to win right now. I think Edmonton's the slight favorite.
I think so.
And Florida started out as the favorite, but Edmonton's depth has to come out in this series because Florida's depth will, and we don't know what Edmonton's going to do. Are they going to put Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl on the top line, or are they going to separate their lines? With Zach Hyman getting hurt for the Oilers, right, that's huge because that's a lot of offensive production and a ton of hitting that is going to be needed against Florida. My thing is with the Oilers, the last thing I'll say on this series is, as long as they don't play Florida's game, I think that they have a good chance to win. And if they get to Game 7, it's in their building, I think they got a really good chance to win there as well. But Florida's been there. They've done that, and they've done it against the Oilers specifically. Mm-hmm. So will the Connor McDavid revenge tour, like you said, will he finally get his Stanley Cup? Personally, I hope he does. Not to mention the Olympics right around the corner as well, and Canada and the U.S. are sitting there that could potentially match up in the gold medal game as well. So if Connor could do that, that'd be nuts. But it's just, I love watching Leon Draisaitl play. He's one of my favorite players, and it just so happens Connor McDavid's on the exact same team. And they are the best two players left in this playoffs, in my opinion, like I was saying, and the best players in the playoffs.
It's like Shaq and Kobe. It's like Shaq and Kobe.
100%.
Like
100%. It's like that. And you're playing against a Florida team that's like a freaking Detroit Pistons. Like back in the day with Dennis Rodman, Detroit Pistons, right? Like we're talking that squad. But the series starts in just a little bit. So do you got anything else on this series, or are we gonna go ahead and let these folks get to watching the pregame?
I think we'll holler at you sometime in the near future, folks. We're officially in the off season. I'm kind of sad because I won't get to see everyone. Well, I can't see anyone anyways, but I won't get to feel everyone's beautiful, emotional, faces through the camera.
Shout out to the 65 of you, by the way, that subscribed. Appreciate it, guys.
Thank you. Continue to hit that subscribe button. Continue, please. It supports us, and I think we'll run it out here, Chad.
All right, here we go, folks. We will catch you when these series are over, and we're going to be coming with a lot of football talk.
Be ready.
And there's going to be some stories going on. Oh, bye-bye.